Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, thank you. Two questions. One for Mr. Massey. The last meeting I mentioned that we had proposed a business assistance program 6 months or so, and the legal opinion was that we couldn't do it. I spent some more time with Mr. Massey, I think it was yesterday, talking about this, and I think there's a narrow way that we think this is legal for this purpose. But could you just say on the record, Mr. Massey, you kind of said this before, but could you just say clearly on the record that we can't do business, you think we cannot do business assistance in the future? That this is a one-time exception?
Councilman Carlson, this is Morris Massey from the legal department. Generally, direct business assistance programs like this would not be allowed in connection with the use of CRA funds. This is a unique circumstance because of the COVID-19 emergency and the fact that the various orders that have been issued by the governing authorities have basically resulted in exacerbating or creating new slum-like conditions. And because of that reason, we do think there's an exception here, and we're going to go forward with implementing language in each one of the community redevelopment plans that basically addresses this unique type of situation, so that if it reoccurs that you would have that ability, but really it's limited to this circumstance.
Great, thank you. And my second question, Ms. Van Loan, we spent a lot of time talking about the interest money, and I talked to you a little bit about this yesterday, but just so the public can hear, we talk about the interest money as if it's money sitting out there in some place that's not connected to everything else. I don't know if you have this in front of you, if you remember it off the top of your head, but I have the latest CRA annual report in front of me with each of the districts outlined. Do you know, can you tell us, mainly talking to the public, where is this interest money bucket? Is it in the reserve funds for the districts, or is it in a line item in the annual reports?
I'm sorry, the column in front of the report I have that we printed out in front of me, the writing on the very last page is very small, so hang on. Earnings on investment, yes, on the last page on the inside cover, it is the combined schedules of revenues and expenditures. And under the top portion, there's 3 portions to that chart. It says earnings on investments, and that will show you each year. So those earnings then keep collecting in the interest fund.
And that stays in that fund, or that goes into the general reserve? Is it, the way I looked at it before, is it looked like it was maybe the interest or earnings in that particular year, and then it was transferred to a reserve fund. Does it just stay in that interest fund forever? And is there any state requirement for how that money can and should be expended, or is it just counted the same way as any other money?
We treat it the same, since it is being generated by CRA funds, that it is generally under the same requirements as far as how we spend it. So I could not suddenly turn around and fund operations for city government. I could not. So all those things that are listed in 163 that we cannot spend the money on, or specifically stated we can't spend the money on, or that fall within the list of what we can spend our money on, that is what that interest money is still falls under. And
then at the end of each year, is that moved into the fund balance, like the general fund reserve for that district, or is it kept in that earning bucket?
From a logistical standpoint within the bank, I don't know if it's held in a separate account. It is tracked on paper as a separate account and is not included in the individual CRA fund balances. It is always listed separately for our financial purposes. So when you look at your quarterly report, every quarter the interest is always shown separately from the fund balances and the rollover funds.
I would, Mr. Chair, I don't know if we, and thank you, Ms. Finlon. Mr. Chair, I don't know if we're going to take motions later, but at some point, I think we should ask maybe CFO's office or somebody to advise on this. I don't think we're custodians of the public's money, and as you know, the rest of the city subsidizes these CRAs. I think because of that, we have an even higher threshold to make sure the money is spent well. I think this particular program is a really good program, and it's the kind of thing that I wish we could do all the time, at least parts of it. My concern here is that the interest money is being presented as if it's something different to or not budgeted. And we've been looking at these fund balances that are out there, and we've been thinking of things like in East Tampa, we want to, I think there's $3 million or something like that. We've been thinking about, renovating or rebuilding a community center that has rats in it. And we are looking at building another community center another way. There's not enough money to do all the projects that we need. And my concern is that if we somehow keep a budget bucket separate, then we're not going to look at it in the totality of what we could be doing. And if that money is just sitting there accruing an account that the public doesn't really see or understand, then we can't use it to go to good effect. And in the next 2 years, I think we're really going to need every possible dollar we can. So whether we make a motion or not, I really would like the CFO's office or someone to look at this and maybe sweep that account every year so that we can put it into the regular fund balance so that we can look at it along with everything else. That's all I have. Thank you.